What would you do if you found a boy bleeding in the snow, and the number in his pocket belonged to the most feared mafia boss in Boston? Harper Lane was just a poor waitress walking home after another double shift with $47 in tips, a past due rent notice, and a mother waiting on medicine she could barely afford. The alley behind Billionaire's was supposed to save her 5 minutes. Instead, it changed her life, because the boy on the pavement was Ethan DeLuca, son of Roman DeLuca, a man whose name made entire rooms go quiet. Harper didn't run. She called, and when she told him, "Your son is on the street. He can't get up," the city's most dangerous man went silent. Stay with this story until the end. Like the video and comment where you're watching from. Before Harper Lane ever heard Roman DeLuca go silent on the phone, she already knew what silence could cost. She knew the silence of an empty refrigerator humming in the dark. She knew the silence of an overdue bill folded twice and hidden under a coffee mug as if paper became less real when it could not be seen. She knew the silence of sitting beside her mother in a public hospital room while a tired nurse explained that treatment options depended on insurance approval, payment history, and availability. Availability. That word had followed Harper for months. Money was not unavailable. It was everywhere in Boston. It moved through the city in black cars, private elevators, corner tables, leather wallets, polished watches, and men who never looked at the right side of a menu. It passed through the restaurant every night in folded bills and careless signatures. It glittered on women's wrists while Harper carried plates heavy enough to make her hands ache. Money was available, just not to people like her. Billionaire's trattoria sat on a narrow street in Boston's North End, squeezed between a bakery that sold cannoli until midnight and a closed tailor shop with dusty suits in the window. From the outside it looked old and warm, all amber glass, dark wood, and red awnings dusted white whenever the snow came down. Tourists thought it was charming. Locals knew better. Billionaire's was the kind of restaurant where the sauce was good, the wine was better, and the back room belonged to men whose names were spoken softly. Harper had worked there for 2 years, long enough to know which customers wanted attention and which wanted invisibility. Long enough to know that a man who tipped too much usually wanted silence more than service. Long enough to understand that the owner, Mr. Billionaire, smiled at everyone but feared only a few. Roman DeLuca was one of those few. The first time Harper saw Roman walk into Billionaire's, she thought the room had lost sound. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in small pieces. A fork stopped against a plate. A laugh died at the bar. The hostess straightened her shoulders. Mr. Billionaire appeared from his office so quickly he nearly tripped over a chair. Roman did not look around to see the effect he had. He did not need to. He was tall, broad-shouldered, always dressed in dark suits that seemed cut from shadow and discipline. His hair was black with a trace of silver near the temples. His eyes were the kind of gray that made people confess before he asked questions. On his left hand, he wore a wedding ring, plain and polished, though every server in the restaurant knew his wife had been dead for years. Harper knew what people whispered. Roman DeLuca controlled half the harbor, 3 restaurants, a private security company, and enough secrets to make powerful men cross the street when they saw his car. Some called him a businessman. Some called him a monster. Most called him nothing at all, unless they were sure no one was listening. Harper called him Table 12. It was safer that way. That Thursday night began like any other winter shift. Snow pressed against the front windows in pale waves melting as soon as it touched the glass. Inside, Billionaire's glowed with candlelight and low voices. The dining room smelled of garlic, red wine, lemon butter, and wool coats drying near the entrance. Harper tied her black apron around her waist and checked the clock. 6:15. Her shift had started at 4, though she had already been awake since sunrise. She had taken 2 buses to County General that morning, sat with her mother through another appointment, argued with a billing clerk who spoke gently but did not change the balance due, then arrived at Billionaire's with wet socks and no time to eat. Her phone buzzed in the pocket of her apron while she carried a tray of veal marsala to table 8. She ignored it. It buzzed again while she refilled water glasses. She ignored it again. By the third buzz, her chest tightened. She stepped into the service hallway beside the kitchen and pulled the phone out. County General. The voicemail was short. Miss Lane. This is Angela from Oncology Billing. We are calling about your mother's medication assistance request. Please contact our office before noon tomorrow to avoid interruption in pharmacy processing. Harper listened once, then again. Then she deleted it because keeping the message would not make the money appear. She closed her eyes and pressed the phone against her forehead. The kitchen door swung open behind her. Harper, the sous chef, called. Table 5 is asking about their calamari. Coming. Her voice sounded normal. That was one of her talents. She could be falling apart from the inside and still sound like a woman who knew exactly where the calamari was. By 8 o'clock, her feet throbbed so badly she had stopped feeling individual toes. Her tips were thin. A couple from Beacon Hill had left her $3 on a $200 bill and smiled like generosity had passed between them. A businessman at the bar had snapped his fingers twice before she looked at him. She had imagined pouring his Chianti into his lap, then served him with a smile. At 8:27, the front door opened. The cold entered first. Then Roman DeLuca. He stepped inside with snow on the shoulders of his black overcoat, his expression calm, his presence sharp enough to cut through every conversation in the room. Beside him stood a boy in a Navy school blazer, dark hair, damp from the weather backpack slung over one shoulder. Ethan DeLuca. 14, maybe 15 at a glance, though. Harper knew he was younger because he still had the unfinished look of a boy trying to grow into his own bones. He had Roman's dark hair, but not his father's cold eyes. Ethan's eyes were brown quiet and too observant for someone his age. Mr. Bellamore hurried forward. Mr. DeLuca, your table is ready. Roman nodded once. Ethan glanced toward the dessert case. Harper noticed because Harper noticed everything. She was assigned to table 12 whenever Roman came in. Not because she had asked for it. Because Mr. Bellamore had decided she was the least likely to say something stupid, spill something hot, or stare too long at the men who sometimes joined Roman after dessert. That night it was only father and son. Harper approached with menus they did not need. Good evening, Mr. DeLuca. Roman looked up at her. Harper. The fact that he knew her name always unsettled her. Ethan smiled politely. Hi, Miss Lane. That unsettled her more. Hi, Ethan. Sparkling water for you, still for your father. Ethan brightened a little. You remember. I remember who makes my life easier by not changing his order every week. Roman watched the exchange without speaking. Harper set down the menus. I'll bring bread. Could I have extra? Ethan asked. Roman looked at him. You had dinner before we left. Ethan shrugged. Bread is different. Harper said bread is always different. For half a second, Roman's mouth moved like he might smile. It was gone almost before it existed. She walked away feeling his gaze on her back. In the kitchen, she grabbed 2 baskets instead of 1. The head chef raised an eyebrow. Roman's kid. Growing boy, Harper said. Rich boy, he muttered. Harper looked at him, still hungry. He said nothing after that. When she returned to the table, Roman was on the phone, speaking low in Italian. Harper understood none of it, but she understood tone. His voice had no wasted sound. Every word landed where he placed it. Ethan sat across from him, pretending not to listen. Harper set down the bread. Ethan whispered, Thank you. You're welcome. Roman ended the call. For a few minutes, they ate in silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind built by people who love each other but do not know how to reach across the table anymore. Harper had seen that silence with her mother, though theirs was made of fear and hospital bills. Roman and Ethan's silence was made of protection, grief, and too many things unsaid. A man entered Bellamore's at 8:50. Harper saw him first in the reflection of the wine cabinet. He was younger than Roman by a few years, handsome in the polished way of men who studied themselves before leaving the house. Tan coat, blue eyes, easy smile. He moved through the restaurant as if he knew every table belonged to someone who owed him a favor. Miles Darden. Harper knew his name because he liked people to know it. He had come in several times with Roman's men, always charming, always generous, always too familiar with the servers. Harper, Miles said when she passed him near the bar. "You working too hard again." She balanced a tray against her hip. "Only when customers keep showing up." He laughed like she had flirted with him. "Careful. A mouth like that gets a girl noticed." Harper gave him the same smile she gave men who mistook discomfort for invitation. "I'll risk it." His eyes lingered too long before he turned away. Miles went to Roman's table and leaned down close enough to speak privately. Harper was at the next table pouring wine close enough to hear pieces, not enough to make meaning. "Ethan's route still the same tonight?" Miles asked. Roman's eyes lifted. "Why?" "Security rotation." Vince wanted confirmation. Roman glanced toward the entrance where Vince Calloway stood near the door. Vince was Roman's head of security, a large, quiet man with a shaved head and the stillness of stone. He did not look like someone waiting for confirmation. He looked like someone who already knew where every exit led and which guest had a weapon. Roman said, "The route is the same." Miles nodded. "Good, I'll update the team." Harper kept pouring wine. Her wrist did not pause. Her face did not change. But she filed the moment away because people always revealed themselves in small ways before they made big mistakes. Miles straightened and smiled at Ethan. "How's school, kid?" Ethan's shoulders tightened. "Fine. Still making your father proud." Roman said, "That's enough, Miles." The words were quiet. Miles lifted both hands in surrender. "Just being friendly." "No," Roman said. "You're being familiar." The smile stayed on Miles's face, but something cold moved underneath it. "Of course." He left the table. As he passed Harper, he said softly, "Some families take everything too seriously." Harper did not answer. She watched him walk toward the back of the restaurant where two of Roman's men waited near the private hallway. At table 12, Ethan picked at his food. Roman noticed. "What?" "Nothing." "Ethan." The boy looked up. "You don't have to do that." "Do what?" "Correct people every time they talk to me." Roman set his fork down. He crossed a line. He asked about school. "He did it to remind you he has access." Ethan looked away. "Everybody has access to me. That's the point, right? Drivers, guards, cameras, locked doors. I can't even go get pizza with my friends without someone watching." Roman's face did not soften, but his voice did. "You are my son. I know. That makes you a target." Ethan laughed, once bitter and quiet. "No, Dad, it makes me lonely." Harper should not have heard that. She stepped away before either of them noticed. But Roman noticed everything too. For the next hour, the night continued around them. Plates came and went. Wine breathed in crystal glasses. Snow deepened outside. Harper moved through the dining room with coffee checks, bread apologies, and practiced patience. At 9:40, Roman took another call. Ethan stared at the dessert case again. Harper did not ask. She brought him tiramisu on a small white plate with a spoon polished clean. Ethan blinked. "I didn't order this. Kitchen made an extra." His eyes narrowed with the suspicion of a boy raised by a man who trusted nothing. "Really? Really enough." Ethan smiled small and real. "Thank you." Harper leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Eat fast, before your father decides sugar is a security risk." Ethan laughed. The sound surprised Roman enough that he paused mid-sentence on the phone. He looked at Ethan, then at Harper. She turned away before his stare could become a question. At 10:15, Roman asked for the check. Harper placed it on the table in a black leather folder. Roman opened it, slipped in a card, then paused. From inside his coat he removed another card. Black. Heavy. No logo. No address. He placed it on top of the receipt. Harper looked at it, then at him. "That isn't mine." Roman said, "It is now." "I don't think I want anything that comes from inside your coat." Ethan covered a smile with his napkin. Roman's expression remained calm. "It has one number on it." Harper did not touch the card. "I have the restaurant number if you need reservations." "It is not for reservations." That made the air around the table change. Roman slid the card closer with 2 fingers. If my son ever needs help and I am not there, call. Harper looked at Ethan. He suddenly seemed embarrassed. Dad. Roman did not look away from Harper. You pay attention, he said. It's my job. No, your job is to serve food. What you do is different. Harper felt heat rise in her face. Not flattery, unease. I'm not part of whatever this is. I know. Then why give it to me? Roman's eyes held hers. Because people who are part of my world often see what benefits them. You see what is wrong. For a moment, Harper had no answer. The restaurant seemed to dim around them. Candlelight moved over Roman's face, catching the hard line of his jaw, the silver at his temple, the wedding ring he still wore like a wound he refused to close. Ethan said quietly, She's nice, Dad. You're making it weird. Roman looked at his son. The faintest warmth passed through his eyes. Then he stood. Keep the card, Harper. She picked it up only because leaving it on the table felt more dangerous than taking it. Roman placed cash in the folder. More than the bill. More than the night deserved. Harper did not look at it until he was gone. When she did, her throat tightened. $300. Enough for medicine. Not enough for peace. At the door, Ethan paused and looked back at her. Thanks for the dessert. Any time. He hesitated as Roman waited beside the entrance. Do you ever get tired of people pretending they're not scared? The question hit her in a place she did not expect. Harper looked around the dining room. At Mr. Bellimore pretending not to watch Roman. At customers pretending not to lower their voices. At herself pretending her mother's next prescription was not already a crisis. Every night, she said. Ethan nodded like he understood too well. Me too. Then he followed his father into the snow. After they left, sound returned to Bellimore's piece by piece. The bartender laughed too loudly. Someone dropped a fork. Mr. Bellimore exhaled near the host stand and crossed himself when he thought no one saw. Harper slipped Roman's card into the inner pocket of her coat. She told herself she kept it because it was expensive and strange. That was not true. She kept it because Roman DeLuca had looked at her like she was useful in a way that had nothing to do with carrying plates. She kept it because Ethan had asked a question no child should have known how to ask. She kept it because something in her had learned long ago that emergencies did not call ahead. The rest of the night dragged. A party of 6 arrived late and stayed too long. A woman spilled red wine across a white tablecloth and blamed Harper for placing the glass too close to her hand. A man at table 7 touched Harper's wrist when asking for the check, and she pulled away smoothly enough that he could pretend it had not happened. By 11:30, her smile had become a mask with cracks in it. In the kitchen, the dishwasher cursed at a clogged sink. The line cooks argued in Spanish over missing containers. Mr. Bellimore counted cash in his office with the door half closed. Harper checked her phone again. A text from her mother. Don't come tonight. Snow is bad. I'm okay. Love you. Harper stared at the words. Her mother always said she was okay when she was not. Evelyn Lane had once been the strongest woman Harper knew. She had worked at a dry cleaner for 23 years, raised Harper alone, carried groceries up 4 flights without complaint, and laughed at every bad thing before it could laugh first. Cancer had made her smaller, but it had not made her less stubborn. Harper typed back, I'll come tomorrow before work. I got enough for the medication. She had not counted the tip yet, but she knew Roman's money made the sentence true. Her thumb hovered before she sent another line. I love you too. She put the phone away and leaned against the metal prep counter. For one moment she allowed herself to feel tired. Not sleepy. Tired in the bones. Tired in the spirit. Tired of being brave because there was no other option. The back door opened and a gust of snow rushed into the kitchen. Clothes that someone shouted. A busboy dragged in a crate of produce from the alley shoulders dusted white. It's getting bad out there. Harper glanced toward the rear exit. She hated the alley behind Bellimore's. It was narrow, poorly lit, and always smelled faintly of old oil, wet cardboard, and cigarettes. But it cut 5 minutes off her walk to the bus stop. 5 minutes mattered when the last bus came just after midnight. 5 minutes mattered when the cold got under your skin. At 11:50, Harper clocked out. Her tips came to $47 before Roman's cash. She folded the small bills into one pocket and Roman's money into another separate, as if keeping them apart changed what they meant. Her manager, Carla, barely looked up from the schedule. "I need you Sunday. I'm already on for Friday and Saturday." "I know," Maria called out. "My mother has an appointment Sunday." Carla sighed like Harper had invented illness to inconvenience her. "Can you switch it?" Harper stared at her. "No." Carla finally looked up. "Fine, but don't complain when your hours get cut next week." There it was, the punishment dressed as policy. Harper wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded once and walked away. In the staff bathroom, she changed from her apron into her thin winter coat. The lining had torn near the left sleeve. One button did not match the others. She pulled her hair from its loose bun and tied it again with stiff fingers. In the mirror, she looked pale. Not delicate pale, exhausted pale. Her dark blonde hair was coming loose around her face. There were shadows under her blue eyes. A small burn mark from the espresso machine crossed the side of her wrist. She looked like a woman who had spent years promising herself things could not get worse, only to learn that life took promises as a challenge. She touched the pocket where Roman's card sat. For emergencies only. Harper almost laughed. Her entire life felt like an emergency. But she doubted Roman DeLuca meant unpaid rent and oncology bills. She left through the kitchen. The cooks were cleaning down the line. The dish machine steamed. Someone had turned the radio low, an old soul song crackling under the clatter of pans. Night Harper, one of the prep cooks, called. "Night. Careful out there." "I always am." That was also not true. No one could always be careful. Not when they were poor. Poverty made people gamble with weather time, sleep, safety, health. Poverty turned bad choices into the only available road. Harper stepped out into the alley and pulled the door shut behind her. The cold hit hard. For a second, she could not breathe. Snow fell thick between the brick walls, turning the alley into a tunnel of white noise. The street lamp above the service entrance flickered once, then again, washing the dumpsters and delivery crates in weak yellow light. Somewhere above her, a fire escape rattled in the wind. She tucked her chin down and started walking. Her boots slipped on packed snow. She caught herself against the wall palm, scraping brick. She cursed under her breath and kept going. Halfway down the alley, she heard something. Not a voice. Not exactly. A sound small enough that the wind almost erased it. Harper stopped. Her first instinct was to keep walking. That instinct had kept her alive in Boston. Do not investigate strange sounds. Do not look too long at parked cars. Do not involve yourself in trouble that already has teeth. She took one more step. Then she heard it again. A breath. Broken. Human. Harper turned slowly. At first, she saw only darkness between a delivery van and the wall. Then the street lamp flickered, and the snow shifted over something black on the ground. A shoe. Polished leather. Too expensive for an alley. Harper's pulse rose. "No," she whispered, though she did not yet know what she was refusing. She moved closer. The shape on the pavement was curled on its side, one arm twisted beneath the body, dark hair wet with snow. Harper dropped to her knees. Her hand reached for his shoulder. The boy stirred. His face turned just enough for the light to touch him. Ethan DeLuca opened one swollen eye and tried to say her name. For one terrible second, Harper forgot how to move. The boy on the pavement was not supposed to be there. He belonged behind guarded doors in the back seat of black cars under his father's watchful shadow. He belonged at table 12 with extra bread and quiet manners. He did not belong in dirty snow with blood at the corner of his mouth. Ethan Harper breathed. His lips moved again, but no sound came out. She forced herself to stop staring and start thinking. 2 semesters of nursing school came back to her in sharp, broken pieces. Airway, breathing, circulation. Do not panic in front of the patient. Do not move the patient unless the scene is unsafe. Keep them warm. Keep them awake if possible. Call for help. Her hands shook, but they still knew where to go. She touched 2 fingers to the side of his neck. There. Fast, but steady. Okay, she whispered. Okay, you're still with me. Ethan's breathing came shallow and uneven. Snow had collected across his shoulders and in his hair. His school blazer was torn at the sleeve, the fabric dark near his ribs, where melting snow had mixed with something Harper did not want to name too quickly. His left cheek had swollen badly, and one eye was nearly closed. There was a cut above his brow, not deep, but bleeding enough to make the snow beneath him pink. Harper slipped her purse off her shoulder and shoved it under his head as gently as she could. "Don't move," she said. "I need you to stay still." Ethan gave the smallest shake of his head. "Dad," he whispered. I know." He tried to lift his hand, failed, then dragged his fingers across the snow until they touched her wrist. "Tell him." Harper's heart slammed hard against her ribs. The black card. She fumbled with the inside pocket of her coat. Her fingers were stiff from the cold and slick with the snow. For one wild moment she thought she had lost it, that the card had slipped out sometime during the night, that the one number she needed had vanished, because life enjoyed cruelty in small, exact ways. Then her fingertips found the heavy edge. She pulled it out. Black card, silver numbers, no name. For emergencies only. Harper stared at it for half a breath, then dug her phone from her apron pocket. The screen was cracked near the corner. Snowflakes melted over the glass. She wiped it against her sleeve and dialed with shaking fingers. 1 ring. 2. The line connected. A man answered without greeting. "Speak." Harper did not ask if this was Roman DeLuca. No one else could make a single word sound like a locked door. "Mr. DeLuca," she said, and her voice nearly broke. She swallowed and tried again. "This is Harper Lane, from Billionaires." There was a pause. In the background she heard faint voices, glass, maybe music. Then everything on his end seemed to quiet. "I know who you are." Harper looked down at Ethan, at the way his chest rose and fell too carefully, as if each breath had to be negotiated. "Your son is on Salem Street," she said, "in the alley behind the restaurant. He fell. He can't get up." Silence. Not confusion, not delay. Something colder. "That is impossible." Harper closed her eyes for 1 second. "I'm looking at him." On the other end, a chair scraped hard against a floor. Ethan's fingers tightened weakly around her wrist. Roman's voice dropped. "How bad?" "He's conscious barely. Pulse is fast but steady. Breathing is shallow. His face is bruised. I don't know if his ribs are broken." "You checked his pulse." "I was in nursing school." Was. The question was absurd, so calm it almost made her angry. "Mr. DeLuca, your son is bleeding in the snow." A door opened on his end. Male voices rose, then stopped. Exact location. Behind Billionaires. Near the service entrance between the delivery van and the east wall. "Do not call the police." Harper went still. "Excuse me. Do not call the police. He needs a hospital. He will have one." A pulse beat in her throat. "Are you asking me to let a child lie here because you don't want paperwork?" The silence that followed felt dangerous enough to touch. When Roman answered, his voice was lower. "I'm asking you to keep my son alive for 6 minutes." Harper looked at Ethan again. He was watching her through one narrow, unfocused eye. 6 minutes. She could do 6 minutes. "Fine," she said. "But if he stops breathing, I call everyone." "Harper." The way he said her name made the snow seem to pause. "Yes, stay with him." She did not know if it was an order, a plea, or both. "I am." The line went dead. For a second, Harper stayed frozen with the phone in her hand. Then Ethan made a sound that tore through her. "I'm here," she said quickly, tucking the phone away. "I'm right here." She shrugged out of her coat and laid it over him. The cold went through her work shirt, instantly sinking into the damp fabric at her back, under her arms, along her spine. She clenched her teeth and ignored it. Her body would complain later, if later still existed. Ethan tried to speak. "No," Harper said. "Save your breath." His lips moved anyway. "House." She leaned closer. "What?" "Outside," he whispered. "They took me outside." Harper frowned. "Outside your house." His eye fluttered. "Car. Someone grabbed you before you got inside." A weak nod. Her stomach turned. Roman had said impossible. Now she understood why. Ethan had not wandered here. He had been taken hurt somewhere else and left behind Bellamore's like a message wrapped in bruises. A sound rolled through the alley. Engines. Not one. Several. Harper lifted her head. Headlights cut across the snow, bright and sudden. 3 black SUVs turned into the alley with terrifying precision, one blocking the far end, one stopping near the service entrance, the third sealing the street behind her. Doors opened before the vehicles fully settled. Men stepped out in dark coats. They moved fast but not frantic. One scanned the roof lines. Another checked the mouth of the alley. A third carried a medical bag. Then Roman DeLuca stepped from the middle SUV. He had no hat, no scarf. Nothing to soften the image of him under the falling snow. His black overcoat moved around him as he walked. His face was carved from restraint, but his eyes gave him away. They went first to Ethan, then to the coat over Ethan's chest, then to Harper kneeling beside him in only a thin black blouse. He crossed the alley in long strides and dropped to one knee. Ethan. The boy's face changed at the sound of his father's voice. Pain stayed, but some deeper fear loosened. Dad. Roman touched his son's jaw with 2 fingers so gently, Harper almost looked away. I'm here. The medical man knelt opposite Harper. Miss, let me in. Harper shifted back but stayed close enough to see Ethan's breathing. He was conscious when I found him. Pulse has stayed steady. He said he was taken outside the house. Roman's eyes flicked to her. Not anger. Attention. Say that again. Ethan stirred. Dad, he whispered. I didn't see them. Roman leaned closer. Do not force it. Breathe. They knew, Ethan said. His voice cracked. They knew where I'd be. Roman's jaw moved once hard. The medical man looked at Roman. We need to move him. Roman nodded. 2 men brought a stretcher from the SUV. They lifted Ethan with careful, practiced hands. He cried out once, and Roman's face changed so violently that every man in the alley seemed to hold still. Harper rose too quickly and nearly fell. Her knees had gone numb. The brick wall caught her shoulder. Roman noticed. Of course he noticed. He stood and turned to her. You're freezing. I'm fine. You are not. One of his men picked up her coat from where it had slid partly off Ethan during the transfer. It was wet, streaked with blood, and useless against the cold. Roman looked at it, then removed his own overcoat and placed it around her shoulders. Harper stiffened. I don't need that. Yes, he said, you do. The coat swallowed her. It was heavy, warm, lined in something softer than anything she owned. It smelled like cedar winter air and the faintest trace of tobacco. Harper hated that it steadied her. Ethan was loaded into the middle SUV. Roman kept one hand on the stretcher until it disappeared inside. Harper stepped back toward the restaurant door. Roman turned. Where are you going? Home. No. The word landed flat between them. Harper lifted her chin, though her teeth had begun to chatter. No. You found him. You heard what he said. I need every detail. I told you what I know. You told me enough to know you know more. I'm not one of your people. Roman's eyes held hers. No. That is why I am asking before I stop asking. The alley seemed to shrink around them. Snow fell across his hair and shoulders. Behind him, his men waited without looking like they were waiting. Every exit belonged to him. Every shadow answered to him. Harper should have been terrified. She was. But she was also angry, and anger warmed what the cold could not reach. Your son asked me not to leave, she said, not you. Roman's expression shifted. Something quiet moved through it. Then come because he may ask for you again. That was the thing that worked. Not the authority. Not the threat. Not the coat on her shoulders. Ethan. Harper looked toward the SUV. Hospital. Yes, a real one. Roman's eyes narrowed slightly. The best one. She believed him. She wished she did not. All right, she said. But I ride where I can see him. Roman opened the SUV door himself. Then sit beside me. Inside the vehicle was warm dark and too clean. Ethan lay across the rear seat, secured and wrapped in thermal blankets, while the medical man checked his blood pressure and shined a light into his eyes. Harper climbed in carefully. Roman followed, filling the space beside her without touching her. The door shut with a heavy sound. The convoy moved. Boston blurred outside the tinted windows, snow smeared by speed and streetlight. Harper sat with Roman's coat still around her hands, clasped tightly in her lap. Her wet shoes left small, dark marks on the floor mat. She wondered if anyone in a car like this had ever worried about ruining something by existing inside it. Roman did not speak for the first minute. Then he said, "Start from when you left the restaurant." So she did. She told him about clocking out, about the alley, about hearing Ethan breathe, about finding the card, about the words Ethan forced out through swollen lips. Roman listened without interruption. His face did not change, but his thumb pressed slowly against the inside of his wedding ring. When she said Ethan had mentioned the house, Roman closed his eyes. Only for a second. But Harper saw it. "I watched him go inside," Roman said. The words were not meant for her. They sounded dragged out of him. "Tonight." "Yes?" Could someone inside have let him back out? Roman opened his eyes. "Careful." Harper turned toward him. "That wasn't an accusation. In my world, questions become accusations quickly. Then maybe your world needs better questions." The medical man glanced up, then quickly looked back at Ethan. Roman stared at Harper. She had spoken before fear could edit her. "I'm sorry," she said, though she was not sure she was. "No," Roman said. "You are not." That almost made her smile, but the sound Ethan made from the back seat killed it. Roman twisted immediately. "Ethan." The boy's good eye opened. "Dad, I am here. Don't go after Kane," Ethan whispered. Roman went still. Harper looked between them. "Kane?" she asked. Roman did not answer her. "Why would you say that?" Ethan swallowed painfully. "They said his name." Roman's hand curled into a fist. "They wanted me to hear it. The medical man said he needs to rest." Roman leaned closer, voice controlled with terrifying effort. "Who said Kane's name?" Ethan's eye moved, searching. "I don't know. Masks? 3 of them. Did you see anything?" Ethan's breath hitched. "One had—" He winced. "Wrist." Roman's gaze sharpened. "What was on his wrist?" Ethan's voice thinned. "Black rose." The SUV seemed to lose all warmth. No one spoke. Even the medical man stopped moving for a beat too long. Roman sat back slowly. Harper looked at him. "What does that mean?" He did not answer at first. His eyes were fixed on his son, but whatever he saw was somewhere far beyond the car. Finally, he said, "It means someone I trusted put his hands on my child." The words were quiet. That made them worse. St. Bridget's Medical Center appeared ahead, though they did not pull up to the main emergency entrance. The convoy turned down a private lane beside the hospital, past a security gate that opened before they stopped. 2 doctors and 3 nurses waited under a covered entrance. No one asked for insurance. No one asked for identification. No one asked why a bleeding child had arrived with armed men in black SUVs. They already knew not to ask. The rear door opened. Ethan was lifted out. Roman followed with one hand on the stretcher. Harper stepped out after them, still wrapped in Roman's coat. Her legs nearly buckled when the heat from the hospital lobby hit her. A nurse noticed and reached for her elbow. "Are you injured?" "No, it's his blood." The nurse's eyes moved to the coat, then away. "This way." They moved fast through a private corridor. The floor shone under soft lights. The walls were lined with framed prints of the harbor. It did not smell like County General. There was no sour coffee, no crowded waiting room, no crying baby, no television bolted to the wall playing daytime court shows at midnight. It smelled like antiseptic and money. A doctor stopped Roman outside a trauma room. "Mr. DeLuca, we need space." Roman looked at the man. The doctor held his ground, but barely. Harper stepped beside Roman before she could think better of it. Let them work. Roman's head turned slowly. Every man in the hall watched her like she had touched a live wire. Harper held his gaze. "If you scare them, they'll still treat him, but they'll be thinking about you instead of him." The silence was enormous. Then Roman stepped back. The doctor vanished into the room with Ethan. The doors closed. Roman remained standing, his eyes on the metal handle, as if he could force the room to surrender answers. Harper became aware of her own body again. The cold, the exhaustion, the dried blood under her fingernails, the way Roman's coat had slipped off one shoulder. She pulled it tighter without meaning to. A man approached Roman. Vince, the security chief from the restaurant. House team is locked down. I have Julian pulling street cameras. No police radio chatter yet. Roman said, "Keep it that way." Vince nodded. Harper looked at Roman. "You really aren't calling the police?" "No, because you don't trust them. Because I know them." She did not know what to say to that. A nurse guided Harper and Roman into a private consultation room. Coffee appeared. Blankets. A small tray of untouched pastries. Someone brought Harper dry socks and a sweatshirt with the hospital logo. She stared at them like they had been handed across a border she did not have papers to cross. Roman stood by the window. Harper sat because her legs demanded it. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Roman said, "Why did you stay?" Harper looked up. "You already asked me that. I am asking again." She studied him. In the restaurant, Roman had always seemed like a man surrounded by invisible walls. Here, under hospital lights, those walls were still there, but one had cracked enough for grief to show through. "He was a kid in the snow," she said. "That simple." No Harper answered. Nothing is that simple. But it was enough. Roman turned from the window. Most people would have walked away. "You keep saying that like you want it to be true." His eyes narrowed. "Why would I want that?" "Because if people are selfish, the world you built makes sense." The words came softly, but they landed hard. Roman did not move. Harper looked down at her hands. "I'm tired. I shouldn't have said that." "Yes," Roman said, "you should have." She looked back up. For the first time since she had known him, Roman DeLuca looked less like a threat than a man trying not to break in front of a stranger. The door opened. A doctor entered, pulling off blue gloves. Roman crossed the room in 2 strides. "He is stable," the doctor said quickly. "Concussion, bruised ribs, facial trauma, minor lacerations. No internal bleeding on initial imaging. We are monitoring for swelling, but he is awake intermittently and responding." Roman's shoulders lowered by a fraction. Harper felt her own breath return. "Can I see him?" Roman asked. "Yes, briefly." "Keep him calm." Roman looked at Harper. The doctor followed his gaze. "He asked for her too," the doctor said. Harper blinked. "Me." Roman's expression softened in a way so brief she almost missed it. "You stayed," he said. Ethan's room was dim. Machines glowed beside the bed. His face looked worse under clean light, every bruise, honest now, every cut, washed and dressed. He seemed smaller against the white sheets. Roman went to one side of the bed. Harper stood at the other, unsure what to do with her hands. Ethan's good eye opened. "There she is," he whispered. Harper tried to smile. "Try not to sound so surprised." His mouth twitched. Roman leaned over him. "Tell me only what you can." Ethan's gaze shifted to his father and fear returned to his face. "They grabbed me outside, before I got to the door. I thought Vince was behind me, but he wasn't." Roman's eyes darkened. "I changed the rotation," Vince said from the doorway, voice tight. Miles confirmed it with me. Roman did not turn, but the name settled into the room. Miles. Harper remembered the restaurant, the smile, the question. Ethan continued each word costing him. "They put me in a car. One kept saying Kane wanted you to know, but another one told him to shut up." Roman's hand rested lightly on Ethan's shoulder, and the black rose. Ethan swallowed. "When he held me down." His sleeve moved. I saw it. Roman closed his eyes once. When he opened them, the father was still there, but the boss had returned. He bent and kissed Ethan's forehead. "Sleep, Dad. I am right outside. Don't kill the wrong man." The room went silent. Roman looked at his son for a long moment. "I won't." Harper believed he meant it. She also believed that someone in Boston was already as good as dead. Roman stepped into the hallway. His men straightened as if pulled by the same wire. He spoke quietly. "Lock down the townhouse staff. Bring me every camera from Salem Street to Beacon Hill. Pull phone records from every man with the black rose. No one with that mark leaves the city." Vince nodded and moved. Roman turned to Harper. She was still standing in the doorway of Ethan's room, one hand on the frame, Roman's coat around her shoulders, his son's blood drying on her sleeve. "I need you to remember Miles Darden," he said. Harper's stomach tightened. "I already do." Roman's eyes held hers. "Good." Behind them, Ethan slept under the dim hospital lights, and the city outside kept falling white and quiet, covering every street as if it could hide what had been done. Harper stayed at the hospital until dawn painted the windows gray. She did not mean to. Sometime after Ethan fell asleep, a nurse brought her tea and told her there was a chair in the corner if she wanted to rest. Harper sat down only for a minute, only to warm her hands, only to wait until Roman stopped speaking in low, lethal tones to the men outside. But minutes stretched. The private wing settled into a strange quiet. Machines hummed behind Ethan's door. Nurses moved past in soft shoes. Roman's men stood at both ends of the corridor, still as statues, their eyes following every doctor, every cart, every shadow under every door. Roman did not sit. He stood outside Ethan's room, with his sleeves rolled to his elbows and his phone in his hand, listening to reports as they came in. His face gave nothing away, but Harper saw the pressure in his jaw, the way his thumb kept circling his wedding ring, the way his eyes moved to Ethan's door every time a machine beeped too sharply. Around 5 in the morning, Roman ended a call and looked at her. "You need sleep." Harper laughed once too quietly to be humor. "That sounds like something said by a man who has never worked a double shift. I have worked through worse nights than this. I believe that. I just don't think you slept through them either." For a second, something almost human passed over his face. Then it was gone. "Vince will take you somewhere secure." Harper sat straighter. "No." Roman looked at her. "No. I'm not disappearing into one of your places because you decided it." His men pretended not to listen. They failed. Roman lowered his voice. "The people who took Ethan knew his route from my house. They knew where to leave him. They knew what mark to show. That means they know Billionaires. They may know you found him. Then tell me that. Don't order me." His eyes held hers. There was snowmelt still darkening the ends of her hair. His coat hung over her shoulders. Ethan's dried blood marked one cuff of her blouse. She looked exhausted enough to fall over, yet she had the nerve to challenge him in a hallway filled with armed men. Roman seemed to notice that too. "You are right," he said. The answer hit the corridor harder than a shout would have. Vince looked away fast. Harper blinked. "Excuse me." Roman stepped closer, stopping just outside her space. "You are right. I am used to giving orders because hesitation gets people killed. But you are not one of my soldiers, and you are not my prisoner." Harper's throat tightened despite herself. "What am I then?" Roman's gaze moved briefly to Ethan's door. "The woman my son asked for when he woke up." That landed somewhere tender. Harper looked away first. Roman continued. "I am asking you to let my people take you somewhere safe until I understand who did this. Somewhere safe like a cage. Some cages have locks. This one will have a phone food heat and a door you may open. I would prefer you do not, but I will not chain you to it. You really know how to make a girl feel courted." A faint curve touched his mouth. It was not quite a smile, but it changed him. "Is that what I am doing?" The air shifted between them. Harper felt it, and hated that she felt it here in a hospital hallway with a boy, bruised in the next room, and danger breathing down every wall. "No," she said, "you're being impossible. That is more familiar ground." She stood. Her knees protested. "I need to see my mother." "Where is she?" "County General." Roman's expression did not change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "Why?" "Because that's where sick people go when they don't have your last name." The words came out rougher than she intended. She was too tired to soften them. Roman absorbed the hit without flinching. "Vince can take you there first." "No. If men in black coats follow me into my mother's hospital room, she'll think I'm dead or married into a cult." This time he did smile. Small, brief, dangerous because it looked good on him. "Then call her." Harper wanted to argue, but her body had begun to shake again. The adrenaline was gone. Only cold hunger and fear remained. She called Evelyn from the consultation room while Roman waited outside. Her mother answered on the fourth ring, voice thin with sleep. "Baby." "Hi, Mom." "What's wrong?" Harper closed her eyes. Of course, Evelyn heard it. Mothers could hear blood in silence. "Nothing. I got stuck at work late because of the storm. I may not come by this morning." "Harper." "I'm okay." "You always say that when you're not." Harper pressed her fist to her mouth. Across the room, through the narrow window in the door, she saw Roman, standing with his back to her, giving her privacy, even though every instinct in him seemed built to collect information. "I'm tired," Harper said. "That's all." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "Did you eat?" Harper almost laughed. "No." "Then eat before you make bad decisions." Too late, Harper thought. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too. Call me when you get home." Harper said she would, though she had no idea where home was anymore. Vince drove her through a waking Boston that looked innocent under fresh snow. Commuters shuffled along sidewalks with coffee in gloved hands. Shopkeepers salted their steps. A man in a red scarf cursed at a parking meter. The city did not know that a boy had been dumped behind Billionaires. It did not know that Roman DeLuca was preparing to tear open his own world. The apartment was near the harbor on the 5th floor of a brick building with no sign outside, and cameras tucked discreetly above the entrance. Vince handed Harper a keycard and a phone. Roman said to use this one. Of course he did. Vince did not react. Inside, the apartment was warm and immaculate. Wide windows looked out over gray water. The kitchen had fresh breadfruit eggs, coffee soup in glass containers, and more food than Harper usually bought in 2 weeks. On the bedroom chair sat folded clothes in her size. Jeans, sweaters, thick socks, a long wool coat. Harper stood in the doorway and stared. There was kindness here, but it was Roman's kind. Silent, efficient, invasive. She walked to the counter and saw an envelope with cash inside. That made her angry enough to move. She shoved the envelope into a drawer and slammed it shut. The phone rang before she took off her shoes. She answered without greeting. Roman's voice came through low and tired. "Did you arrive?" "Yes." "Good. You had clothes waiting." "Yes. How did you know my size?" A pause. Observation. That is a creepy answer. It is an honest one. Harper looked out at the harbor. The water moved dark under the morning light. "You can't keep doing this. Keeping you alive. Making decisions like I'm another item on your list." Roman was silent long enough that she thought he might hang up. Then he said, "I am not good at asking." "No kidding. I'm trying." She leaned her forehead against the cold glass. That disarmed her more than an apology would have. "Then try this. Why am I here? Because someone wanted me to see the Black Rose and think of Silas Kane." The man Ethan mentioned. "Yes." "Is he your enemy?" "One of them." "That sounds crowded. My life is not known for simplicity." Harper watched gulls move above the water like scraps of paper caught in the wind. "You think Kane did it?" "I think I'm supposed to think Kane did it." "You hear the difference." "I do now." There was something in his voice then. Not gratitude. Not exactly. Recognition, again the same thing she had seen in the alley when he looked at her coat over Ethan. "Roman said you asked the right question in the car." "Which one?" "Why leave him alive?" Harper closed her eyes. She saw Ethan's bruised face, his fingers in the snow, his whisper. "Because they wanted you angry." "Yes, but not destroyed." "No, destroyed men don't play by rules," she said. Roman's voice became very quiet. "Neither do fathers." She did not answer that. At noon, Vince returned with food and another coat, because, apparently, Roman believed warmth could be delivered by security detail. Harper ate at the kitchen counter because her body no longer allowed pride to outrank hunger. The soup was hot and rich. She hated that it was exactly what she needed. At 2, Roman sent for her. The drive took her not back to the hospital but to a narrow building near the waterfront, its windows dark, its door opened by a man who looked like he had never smiled on purpose. Upstairs, Roman waited in a room full of monitors. Julian Reed sat at the main desk, thin, sharp-faced, wearing wire-rimmed glasses and a hoodie under an expensive jacket. He looked more like a graduate student than a man who could probably erase someone from 3 databases before finishing coffee. Roman stood behind him. Vince leaned against the wall. Harper stopped just inside the room. Roman looked at her. "You can leave at any time." "I know." "Do you?" "No, but I liked hearing it." Julian pulled up the footage. The first camera showed the street outside Roman's townhouse. The image was grainy, taken from across the road. A black sedan waited near the curb, lights off. Ethan appeared under the stone entrance backpack, over one shoulder, head down against the cold. He was maybe 6 steps from the door when the sedan opened. 3 men moved fast. One covered his mouth. One caught his arms. The third opened the rear door. Ethan fought. Harper had expected him to freeze. He did not. He kicked backward, drove an elbow into one attacker's ribs. The movement was brave, useless, heartbreaking. The men forced him into the car. The sedan pulled away. Roman did not move, but Harper felt the rage coming off him like heat from a stove. The second camera showed the sedan arriving behind Billionaire 17 minutes later. The men carried Ethan out. Not dragged, carried. Efficient, controlled. One attacker lowered him near the wall. Another checked the alley. The third crouched near Ethan for a moment. His sleeve rode up. Julian froze the frame. On the man's wrist, ink curved black against pale skin. Not a rose like the soft red flowers sold outside churches on Valentine's Day. This was a black rose, all sharp petals and thorned stem, designed like a mark cut into the body rather than placed on it. Roman said only 12 men wear that. Harper looked at the screen. Could someone copy it? Vince answered. They could copy the shape, not the placement, size, and inner detail. That mark is done by one artist. Roman's artist. Harper kept staring. "What do you see?" Roman asked. She did not answer right away. The attacker with the tattoo looked down at Ethan. His posture was strange, not panicked, not cruel either. Focused, like a man completing a task precisely as instructed. "They didn't dump him," Harper said. Vince frowned. "What?" "They placed him." Roman's eyes moved to the screen again. Harper stepped closer. "Look at his head." "They put my purse under him later, but before that they left him on his side. Not face down, not on his back. His airway was clear." Julian rewound the clip and played it again. Harper continued. "They hurt him, but they were careful about how they left him. They chose the alley behind a restaurant where someone would come out eventually, but not too soon. Late enough for fear. Soon enough for survival." Roman's face hardened with each word. Vince said professionals. "No," Harper said. "Employees." The word hung in the room. Roman turned fully toward her. She swallowed but kept going. "If Silas Kane wanted to threaten you, why use your own mark so clearly? Why mention his name to Ethan? Why make the clue obvious enough that a hurt kid remembers it?" Julian leaned back in his chair. "She has a point." Vince looked annoyed that she did. Harper looked at Roman. "Someone wanted your first thought to be Kane. Maybe because once you moved against him, you'd stop looking at your own people." Roman's gaze stayed locked on her for several seconds. Then he said to Julian, "Send the footage to my private line. Pull Miles Darden's access logs." Vince straightened. "Miles." Roman did not look away from Harper. He asked about Ethan's route at Billionaires. Harper felt her skin go cold. "You noticed that?" "I noticed you noticing it." Julian's fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Darden had access to security rotations through logistics. He opened the route file at 7:12 last night. Vince cursed under his breath. Roman's face remained calm. Too calm. Harper had begun to understand that his quiet was not peace. It was the moment before violence chose its direction. "Bring me Silas Kane," Roman said. Vince nodded. "No," Harper said. Every man in the room looked at her. She felt immediately insane. Roman's voice was soft. "No. If you drag him in, you look angry. If you go to him, you look controlled. Vince stared at her as if she had grown a second head. Harper folded her arms to hide the tremor in her hands. You told me questions become accusations in your world. So ask before you accuse. Roman studied her. Then he took his coat from the back of a chair. Vince with me? Vince followed him to the door. Roman paused beside Harper. You are either very brave or too tired to be afraid. She looked up at him. Both. He nodded once, then left. Harper stayed with Julian in the monitor room while Roman crossed the city to meet Silas Kane. Julian said little which Harper appreciated. He gave her coffee. It was better than hospital coffee, worse than Billionaire's, and hot enough to hold. After 20 minutes, Julian opened a live audio feed. Harper looked at him. He shrugged. Boss said you listen. The room filled with the sound of a glass being set on wood. Silas Kane's voice came first, older, smooth-edged with Boston Irish and old money. Roman DeLuca in my club before sunset. Either I am dying or you are angry. Roman replied, My son was taken last night. A pause. I heard there was trouble. My son was beaten and left behind Billionaire's. Another pause longer. When Silas spoke again, the humor was gone. He alive. Yes. Good. You sound sincere. I am many things. Careless with children is not one of them. Roman's voice remained even. Your name was spoken during the attack. Silas exhaled through his nose. Convenient. One attacker wore my black rose. That is more convenient. Harper leaned closer to the speaker. Roman said, Tell me you did not order it. Silas answered immediately. I did not order it. Tell me why I should believe you. Silas laughed once, but there was no warmth in it. Because if I wanted to move against you, I would hit money, not blood. Blood makes men stupid. Money makes them negotiate. Roman said nothing. Silas continued. I have grandchildren, Roman. You know this. You sent gifts when Nora was born. Do not insult me by suggesting I would put a boy in the snow to make a business point. The room where Harper sat felt smaller. Silas was telling the truth. She did not know him, had never seen his face, but she heard something in his voice that did not sound rehearsed. Pride, yes. Threat, certainly. But not guilt. Roman heard it too. Someone wants me looking at you, Roman said. Then do us both a favor and disappoint him. Who benefits if I don't? Silas took his time answering. A man who needs war to become important. Peace rewards men at the top. War rewards men who control movement, supply favors fear. Harper looked at Julian. Julian was already typing. Movement, supply, logistics. Miles. Roman's voice came through the speaker colder now. Give me a name. Silas replied. If I had one, I would give it to you wrapped in ribbon. I like peace. Peace pays on time. The feed ended several minutes later. Harper sat back. Julian said, Well, hell. Vince brought Harper back to the harbor apartment after dark. She expected Roman to call. Instead, he arrived. She opened the door to find him standing in the hallway without his men close enough to see. Snow clung to his coat. His face looked carved down to the bone with fatigue. Harper stepped aside. He entered, but only a few feet. You were right about Kane, he said. She closed the door. I wish I wasn't. So do I. They stood in the quiet apartment with the harbor beyond the glass black water moving under scattered city lights. Roman looked around once. His gaze landed on the drawer where she had hidden the envelope of cash. You did not take the money. I'm not for sale. I did not think you were. You left cash on the counter. I thought you might need it. I do need it. That's what made it insulting. Roman absorbed that too. He seemed to be learning the shape of her pride, testing where it bruised and where it held. I apologize, he said. Harper stared at him. You do that more than I expected. Apologize. Surprise me. The corner of his mouth moved. He walked to the window and looked out at the harbor. My wife used to say I only knew 3 ways to help. Money, men, and threats. Was she wrong? No. Harper came to stand several feet away from him. What was her name? Roman did not answer immediately. The silence changed. It became older, heavier. Clara. Harper heard the wound in the name. She died. 4 years ago. I'm sorry. Roman nodded once, but his eyes stayed on the water. She was sick before I admitted she was sick. I saw the weight loss, the pain, the way she hid her hand against her stomach at dinner. I had doctors available, but I kept thinking there would be time after one more meeting, one more shipment problem, one more dispute. His reflection in the glass looked less solid than the man beside her. By the time I stopped being important, the cancer was already everywhere. Harper's throat tightened. She thought of Evelyn in a thin hospital gown, smiling too brightly, pretending pain was a small thing. Roman turned his head slightly. Who are you losing? Harper should have lied. She was good at surviving, bad at lying to people who already knew grief by name. My mother. Roman's eyes settled on her face. Cancer. Ovarian. Something passed through him. Not shock. Recognition so sharp it almost looked like pain. Harper looked away. She needs medication, better doctors, time we can't afford. Roman said nothing. That frightened her more than questions. Don't, she said. I have not said anything. You're thinking something. I am always thinking something. Don't think about fixing this. Roman's voice softened. Why? Because if you fix it, I won't know what it costs. He turned fully toward her. It would cost me less than an evening out. That's not better. No, he said. It is not. The honesty settled between them. Harper wrapped her arms around herself. I don't want to owe you my mother's life. Roman's eyes darkened. No one should have to measure a parent's life against debt. But people do. Yes, he said. They do. For a moment, neither of them moved. Outside, the harbor lights trembled on black water. Somewhere below, a car passed over wet pavement. The apartment was warm, but Harper felt exposed as if Roman had looked straight through every defense she still had energy to hold. He stepped closer slowly enough that she could move away if she wanted. She did not. I will not touch your life without asking, he said. Her breath caught at the word touch, though he had not touched her at all. You say that like it's easy. It is not. Good. His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. The moment opened. Dangerous, quiet, too soon. Harper stepped back first. Roman let her. His restraint did something strange to her chest. His phone vibrated. He looked at the screen, and the softness vanished. Julian found something. What? Miles accessed Ethan's route, but he was not the only one. Nolan Price opened the file 20 minutes later. Nolan has the black rose on his wrist. Harper remembered the name from whispers at Billionaires. Nolan Price, enforcer. Scar near his mouth. Roman's man. Roman moved toward the door. Where are you going? To ask questions. Ask, she said, not accuse. He looked back. I remember. Harper held his gaze. And Roman. It was the first time she said his name without thinking. He noticed. Yes. If Miles is involved, he'll push you toward Kane again. Watch who wants you angry. Roman's expression changed, not much, but enough. You listen like a thief, he said. I wait tables. Same skill. This time he smiled fully for half a second. Then he was gone. The next evening, Billionaires closed early. No explanation was given to the staff beyond weather, though the streets were clear enough for traffic and the sky had stopped snowing hours before. Harper arrived through the kitchen entrance with Vince beside her. The restaurant looked different without customers, its warmth stripped down to polished wood, empty glasses and shadows waiting under tables. Roman stood in the private dining room at the back. His sleeves were rolled up. Julian arranged files near a laptop. Vince took position by the door. Harper sat in the corner booth where she had served lonely couples, drunk businessmen, and once Ethan DeLuca a free tiramisu. At 9, the front door opened. The first man with a black rose stepped inside. He was older, thick through the shoulders, with silver hair combed straight back and a scar that disappeared beneath his collar. Harper had seen him once at Billionaires sitting alone with a plate of ossobuco, eating slowly, while two younger men stood near the bar and pretended not to guard him. Tonight he removed his gloves at the host stand and looked toward the private dining room as if he already knew why he had been summoned. Roman did not greet him. He simply watched. The older man came forward and took a seat at the long table. His black rose was inked near his thumb, the petals curled around the base like a bruise. The second man arrived 3 minutes later. Then the third. Then two, together speaking low until they saw Roman's face and remembered silence was safer. Each man carried himself with the careful confidence of someone who had done ugly things and slept afterward. Each wore a suit. Each had the mark somewhere visible on a wrist behind an ear along the side of the neck. Harper sat in the corner booth wrapped in a plain black sweater Vince had brought to the apartment, her hands folded around a cup of coffee she had not touched. Nobody looked at her directly for long. That was Roman's doing. His protection did not need an announcement. It sat over the room like another armed man. Miles Darden arrived seventh. He entered with snow on his coat and charm already warmed on his face. "Roman," he said, voice smooth, "you close the restaurant and call us like sinners to church. Should I be worried?" Roman looked at him. "You tell me." Miles smiled, but Harper saw the pause before it. A tiny hesitation. Almost nothing. Almost nothing mattered. Miles removed his coat and handed it to no one. He laid it over the back of a chair, then sat 2 seats from Roman's right hand, close enough to suggest trust, not close enough to be trapped by it. His black rose was high on the inside of his forearm, half hidden under his cuff. Harper remembered him in the restaurant 2 nights ago leaning toward Roman's table. Ethan's route still the same tonight. Security rotation. Vince wanted confirmation. She looked at Vince by the door. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were on Miles. The last man arrived late, Nolan Price. He came through the front with his collar turned up, jaw set, snow melting into the dark fabric of his suit. He was younger than most of the others, maybe 35, lean and sharp, with a pale scar pulling at the corner of his mouth. His eyes moved quickly around the room, taking inventory. Roman, Vince, Julian, the men at the table, then Harper. His gaze landed on her just a fraction too long. Roman saw it. "Sit down, Nolan." Nolan's eyes returned to Roman. Traffic was bad. The city is 5 miles wide. Nolan gave a thin smile. Still manages to be inconvenient. He sat at the far end of the table across from Miles. His black rose sat on the inside of his right wrist. Harper felt the back of her neck tighten. The attacker in the footage had carried the mark in the same place. Roman waited until the room settled. No one asked why they were there. Not really. Men like these did not need reasons explained. They smelled trouble before it entered the room. But the shape of the trouble still mattered, and Roman let them sit with it long enough for each man to imagine how badly the night could end. Julian dimmed the lights. The screen on the wall came alive. The first image showed Ethan outside Roman's townhouse, small beneath the stone entrance school bag over one shoulder breadth, pale in the cold. Several men at the table shifted. Nolan did not. Miles leaned back slowly. Roman stood with one hand resting on the top of a chair. "My son was taken from my front door 2 nights ago," he said. His voice did not rise. That made everyone listen harder. On the screen, the sedan opened. 3 masked men moved. Ethan fought. One man struck him in the side hard enough to fold him. Harper looked down at her coffee, but she could still hear the silence in the room change. Roman continued. He was beaten. Not killed, not robbed, not hidden. Beaten, transported, and left in the alley behind Billionaire's where someone would find him after closing. The footage changed. The alley appeared. The sedan. The men. Ethan's body carried through the snow. Harper watched the table instead of the screen. The older man, with the thumb tattoo, looked furious. His nostrils flared. His hands curled, then opened, as if he had to remind himself not to reach for a weapon. Another man murmured something in Italian under his breath. A third looked genuinely sick. Nolan watched with dead eyes. Not calm. Dead. There was a difference. Miles looked angry, but his anger had rhythm. It arrived half a beat after the others carefully placed, neatly worn. Roman lifted the remote. The screen froze on the attacker crouched beside Ethan. The sleeve had slipped back. The black rose showed clear against his wrist. No one breathed loudly. This mark, Roman said, is not decoration. He walked slowly along the table. It is not fashion. It is not something a drunk idiot gets because he thinks it makes him dangerous. It is earned, given, witnessed. He stopped near Nolan but did not look at him. There are 12 living men who wear it. Roman turned back toward the screen. One of them put his hands on my son. The room went still enough for Harper to hear the ice machine humming behind the bar. An older man named Salvatore spoke first. "Roman, none of us would touch the boy." Roman looked at him. "I know some of you would die before touching him." Salvatore nodded once, relieved and offended at the same time. Roman's eyes moved across the table. "I also know one of you did." Miles exhaled slowly. The mark could have been copied. Vince's eyes cut to him. Roman said it could have. Miles leaned forward. "Then we should be discussing Kane." Harper saw it. There. The push. Soft enough to sound reasonable. Fast enough to be eagerness. Roman's face gave nothing away. Why Kane? Miles spread one hand. Ethan heard the name. "Kane wants the harbor routes. He has hated our peace for years." "Our peace has made him rich," Roman said. "Peace makes old men rich. Ambitious men get restless." A few men glanced at each other. Miles had planted the thought well. He knew how to speak in rooms like this. He did not accuse. He fed fear and let it grow its own teeth. Roman walked to the head of the table. "I met with Silas Kane." That changed the room. Nolan's gaze flickered toward Miles. Harper caught it. Miles did not look at Nolan. He smiled faintly instead. "You met with him," Miles said. "I did, and you believed him." Roman's eyes settled on him. "I did not say that." Miles's smile held, but the skin around his eyes tightened. "Forgive me. I assumed." Roman's voice softened. "You assume often." No one moved. Miles lowered his gaze respectfully. "Only when your family is attacked." Harper's fingers tightened around the coffee cup. He was good. So good that if she had not heard him ask about Ethan's route, if she had not watched him relax every time Kane's name entered the conversation, she might have believed him. Roman placed the remote on the table. "Everyone will surrender phones." A low current moved through the men. Not protest. Calculation. Salvatore placed his phone down first, then another, then another. Vince moved around the table with a leather tray. Nolan's hand went into his jacket. Too slowly. His thumb touched the screen once before the phone appeared. Harper leaned back in the booth, eyes lowered, but she watched beneath her lashes. Nolan placed the phone face down. Vince picked it up. Roman said, "Unlock it." Nolan looked up. "You know my code." "I do. I asked you to unlock it." A beat passed. Nolan smiled without warmth and tapped the screen. Vince took it from him and walked it to Julian. Julian connected the device to his laptop. The room listened to the small sound of keys. Roman kept his eyes on the men. "While Julian works, each of you will account for every minute between 10:45 and midnight 2 nights ago." One man scoffed. "We are being interrogated now." Roman turned to him. "My son was bleeding in snow." The man looked down. "That answers your question," Roman said. They began. Salvatore had been at a card room in Revere with 6 witnesses and camera footage. Another had been in Providence. One had spent the night with his girlfriend, who apparently hated him enough to confirm it honestly. Another had been drunk in a hotel bar and showed the receipt with visible embarrassment. Miles spoke smoothly. "I was at the warehouse until 10:30, then home by 11. My building has cameras." Julian did not look up. "Your building cameras went down from 11:12 to midnight." Miles frowned. "Again, we've had electrical issues." Roman said nothing. Nolan leaned back. "I was with a woman." Roman looked at him. "Name." Nolan smiled. "She's married." "Name." The smile faded. "I don't put civilians in this." Roman moved closer to him. "You put my son in this." Nolan's jaw worked. Before he could answer, Julian said Roman. The room turned. Julian looked at the laptop screen, then at Nolan. "There is an unsent message open." Roman held out his hand. Julian brought the phone to him. Harper watched Roman read. His expression did not change, but the room seemed to lose 10 degrees. Roman looked at Nolan. "Who is M?" Nolan went very still. Miles did not move at all. Roman read aloud. "He is not moving on Kane yet. M wants us ready." The words settled over the table like ash. Several men turned toward Nolan. Salvatore's chair scraped back an inch. Nolan raised both hands slowly. "Roman, I can explain." "Good." Nolan swallowed. "It is not what you think." Roman's eyes were flat. "You are texting someone about me not moving on Kane after my son is attacked, and that someone is identified only as M. Tell me what I think." Nolan looked at the other men, searching for something. Support, escape, mercy. He found none. Miles leaned back, face dark with disgust. Too dark. Harper saw it again. "Performance." "Roman," said Vince. Vince and another guard moved in. Nolan stood fast, knocking his chair back. "This is a mistake." Roman took one step forward. Nolan stopped. Everything in him understood that the next movement would decide whether he walked or was dragged. Roman's voice was soft enough to make Harper's pulse climb. "Mistakes are made in kitchens, Nolan. This was a choice." Nolan's eyes flashed toward Miles. Only once. Only for a breath. But Roman saw it. So did Harper. Vince took Nolan by the arm and led him toward the private hallway. Nolan started talking before he reached the door. "I did not touch the kid," Roman said. "Then you have nothing to fear." Nolan gave a sharp, terrified laugh. No one else did. The door closed behind them. The remaining men stayed at the table. Miles looked around, voice low and controlled. "If Nolan is involved, we need to assume Kane paid him. That message could mean anything. M could be one of Kane's lieutenants." Harper felt her anger stir. He was still pushing, still trying to aim Roman outward. Roman picked up Nolan's chair and set it upright with deliberate calm. "No one said Kane paid anyone." Miles looked at him. "I'm saying we should not ignore the obvious." Roman's gaze moved to Harper. Just once. A question without words. She did not speak, not yet. She watched Miles's right hand. His fingers tapped his knee beneath the table. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Not nerves. Impatience. Julian's laptop chimed softly. He looked at Roman and gave a slight nod. Roman said to the room, "We will take 10 minutes." No one moved. That was not a suggestion. The men rose slowly and drifted toward the bar and windows under Vince's watch. Conversation stayed low. No one dared leave the room. Roman crossed to Harper's booth and sat opposite her. For the first time that night he looked tired. Not weak. Tired, like a man holding back an ocean with one hand. "You saw something," he said. Harper kept her voice low. "Nolan is scared." "He should be." "That's not what I mean." Roman waited. Harper glanced toward the bar where Miles stood with Salvatore, speaking quietly, expression grave. "Nolan is scared like a man who got caught. Miles is calm like a man who expected someone else to get caught." Roman's eyes did not leave her face. "He pushed Kane 3 times," she continued, "before anyone else could. He reacted too fast when you said you met Silas." And when Nolan looked at him, Miles acted disgusted instead of surprised. Roman said nothing. Harper leaned closer. "I think Nolan was part of it. But I don't think Nolan gave the order." Roman looked toward Miles. "Julian found Miles in Ethan's root file." "You already knew that." "Yes. What else?" Roman's jaw tightened. "His building cameras went down exactly when he needed them to." "That's not proof?" "No. But it is an invitation." A muffled crash sounded behind the private hallway door. Harper flinched. Roman saw it. "You do not need to hear this. I already heard enough." His voice changed quieter now. "Harper." She looked at him. "If you want to leave, Vince will take you out the back." The offer surprised her. Not because it was kind, but because she could tell it cost him. He wanted her there. He needed her eyes. Still, he offered the door. She looked down at her hands. Part of her wanted to run. Back to her old apartment, her old bills, her old problems that at least knew her name. This room had too much blood in its walls, even if none had touched the floor. These men lived by rules that did not include courtrooms, mercy, or second chances. But Ethan's face came back to her. The alley. The snow. His small, broken voice. "Don't kill the wrong man." Harper looked up. "I'll stay." Roman's eyes held hers a moment longer than necessary. Then Vince returned. He closed the door behind him. His face gave nothing away, but Nolan's absence did. Roman stood. Vince handed him a folded piece of paper. Roman read it. Then he looked at Miles. The room seemed to know before anyone spoke. Miles straightened slightly, not enough for most people to notice. Harper noticed. Roman walked back to the head of the table. "Nolan has named the man who paid him." Miles laughed once. Convenient. Roman set the paper down. He gave details. Miles shook his head slowly as if saddened. A desperate man will say anything. Julian turned the laptop so the screen faced the table. Then he was desperate enough to match bank transfers, access logs, and call records. Miles's smile disappeared. Julian clicked once. 6 calls from your private line to Nolan in the 48 hours before Ethan was taken. 3 encrypted messages routed through a server you use for warehouse manifests. A payment to Nolan's brother's construction company from an account tied to a shell corporation you control. And access to the townhouse root file at 7:12 the night of the attack. Miles looked at Roman, not Julian. "That account handles many things. Roman said it handled my son. Number." The word came too quickly. Finally, something real broke through Miles's face. Roman stepped closer. "You told me Vince wanted Ethan's route confirmed." Miles looked at Vince. Vince's stare could have stripped paint. "I did not," Vince said. Miles exhaled, then gave a small smile, one made of surrender and arrogance mixed together. "All right." The room went still. Roman's face did not move. "All right," he said. Miles adjusted his cuffs. Harper saw his black rose fully now, the petals dark against his skin. "I did not order your son killed." A sound moved around the table, rage contained by fear of Roman. Miles lifted his voice. "I did not, and that matters." Roman was very quiet. "You think that matters?" "Yes. I think in this room of all rooms, precision matters." Roman moved so fast Harper barely saw it. One moment he stood 3 feet away. The next, his hand was around Miles's throat, driving him back against the wall hard enough to rattle the framed photographs. Men stood. Vince's hand moved to his jacket. Roman did not look at anyone but Miles. "Precision," he said, voice low, "is the only reason you are breathing." Miles gripped Roman's wrist, but he did not fight. He knew better. Harper stood before she realized she was moving. Roman. His eyes flicked to her, just once. That was enough. He released Miles. Miles bent forward, coughing one hand at his throat. Roman stepped back, smoothing his cuff as if nothing had happened. "Speak carefully," Roman said. Miles laughed through a rasp. "There he is." Roman's gaze sharpened. Miles looked around the room, no longer pretending. "You all feel it. You have felt it for years. Since Clara died, he has been half a king. Careful. Restrained. Counting peace like it is a virtue." No one answered. Miles turned to Roman. "You built an empire by understanding fear, then let grief make you sentimental." Roman's eyes were dead calm. "So you used Ethan to correct me." "I used a wound," Miles said, "not a grave." Harper felt cold crawl through her stomach. Miles looked at her then. "You look horrified, sweetheart. You should be grateful. If I wanted that boy dead, he would be dead." Harper stepped out of the booth. Every man in the room turned toward her. Her voice shook, but not from fear. "You left him bleeding in an alley." Miles tilted his head. "I left him where he would be found. You hurt a child to move a man like a chess piece." Miles smiled faintly. "This is not your world." "No," Harper said. "That's how I can still smell rot when it's dressed up as strategy." Something flickered in Roman's eyes. Not softness, respect. Miles's mouth tightened. "You think you matter because he lets you sit here." Harper took one step closer. "I matter because your mistake is still alive." The room changed again. Miles looked at Roman. "Are you hearing this? A waitress speaks to your underboss in front of marked men, and you let her." Roman's voice was quiet. "She has shown better judgment than my underboss." The word struck harder than any slap. Underboss. That was what Miles had been reaching for. Maybe not officially, maybe not yet, but close enough to taste it. Miles's mask cracked. You needed war, Roman said. Miles's eyes burned now. We needed movement. Kane's people were testing the docks. The Irish were circling South Boston. Your softness was becoming expensive. My softness, Roman said, kept us rich. Your softness made them question you. No, Roman said, you questioned me. Then you dressed your ambition like concern. Miles's breathing was rough. Roman continued. You thought if I moved against Kane, logistics would become the heart of the city. Roads, guns, cash flow, safe houses. Every road would go through you. Miles said nothing. Julian said he had contracts drafted with 3 dock supervisors. Contingent control clauses. They activate in the event of conflict with Kane's network. Salvatore cursed. One of the younger men stood so fast his chair fell backward. Roman lifted a hand. The man froze. Miles looked at each face and understood the room had left him. He turned back to Roman. I gave you a chance to be feared again. Roman's expression did not change. My son fears enough because of men like us. That silenced even Miles. Roman stepped close again, but this time he did not touch him. Ethan is not a tool. He is not a road. He is not a message. Miles's jaw tightened. Roman leaned in. He is my son. The words were soft, almost gentle. That made them final. Vince moved behind Miles. Miles did not resist when Vince took his arms. Perhaps some part of him still believed history mattered, that years of service could purchase mercy, that Roman would not do what everyone in the room knew had to be done. As Vince led him toward the hallway, Miles stopped beside Harper. His face turned toward her. You think this ends clean because you pointed at the right monster. Harper held his gaze. Number. Miles smiled faintly. At least you're not stupid. Roman stepped between them. Miles's smile vanished. Roman said, do not look at her again. For the first time all night, Miles looked afraid. Then Vince took him through the door. This time, Roman did not follow immediately. He stood in the center of the private dining room while the remaining men watched him with new caution. Something had shifted. Not weakened, sharpened. Their boss had been betrayed by ambition, wearing loyalty's face, and he had not fired blindly. He had listened. He had waited. He had found the rot and cut toward the root. Roman looked at each man. You will leave your phones with Julian. You will give Vince your movements for the last 7 days. You will not discuss this outside this room. You will not contact Kane's people. You will not touch Miles's accounts, men, warehouses, or women. Anyone who moves before I say move joins him. No one argued. Not one. Salvatore bowed his head slightly. For what it is worth, Roman, the boy has all our prayers. Roman looked at him. Give him your loyalty. God can keep the prayers. Salvatore nodded. One by one, the men filed out through the side entrance under Vince's supervision. The restaurant emptied again. Chairs stood crooked. Coffee cooled. Snow pressed softly against the windows as if the city outside had no idea how close it had come to burning. Harper sat back down because her legs no longer trusted her. Julian packed his laptop in silence. He looked at her once. You were right about Miles. She rubbed her hands together. I wish people would stop saying that like it helps. Julian gave a tired nod and left. Then it was just Harper and Roman. For several minutes neither spoke. The private dining room still smelled like espresso wool coats and fear. Roman walked to the bar and poured whiskey into a glass. He did not drink it. He only held it, looking down as the amber liquid caught the light. Harper watched him from the booth. Is Nolan alive? Roman's hand stilled. Yes. She believed him, but the answer did not comfort her. Is Miles? Roman looked at her. For now, the words were honest enough to hurt. Harper swallowed. I don't know what to do with that. Roman set the glass down untouched. Neither do I some nights. That surprised her more than any apology. He came back to the booth but did not sit. Harper looked up at him. Did I help prevent a war, or did I just help you find who to punish? Roman's face changed not with anger, but with the weight of a question he had asked himself before she said it aloud. Both, he said. Her chest tightened. At least you didn't lie. I will not lie to you. That sounds dangerous. It is. He finally sat across from her. The distance between them was only the width of the table, but it felt like the edge of two separate worlds. Roman folded his hands. If I had gone after Kane tonight, men would have died on both sides by morning. Some guilty, some not. You stopped that. And Miles. Miles chose a path that ends where it ends. That's how men like you make violence sound tidy. Roman accepted the blow. Yes. Harper looked toward the hallway where Miles had disappeared. I'm not built for this. No, Roman said. You are not. Then why am I still here? His eyes searched hers, and for the first time Roman seemed to have no prepared answer. When he spoke, his voice was lower. Because Ethan asked for you. That was at the hospital. No, Roman said. Before that. At Bellamore's he used to ask if you were working. Harper went still. He did. Roman nodded once. He said you were the only person in the restaurant who looked at him like a kid instead of leverage. The words hit her quietly and deeply. Harper looked down. I brought him dessert. You brought him normal. Her eyes burned. She hated crying. She especially hated almost crying in front of Roman DeLuca. He saw anyway. Of course he did. But he did not touch her. He did not soften the moment by pretending not to notice. He simply sat there steady and silent, letting her keep whatever pride she could. After a while, Harper said, he shouldn't have to know words like leverage. No, Roman said. You can't protect him by making everyone afraid. I know. She looked up at him. Do you? Roman's gaze moved toward the dark window where their reflections sat across from each other like strangers deciding whether to trust a bridge. I thought protection was control, he said. Where he goes. Who drives, which door opens, which man stands behind him. His jaw tightened. He was taken from my front step. Harper's voice softened despite herself. That does not mean you failed him. Roman looked back at her. Yes, he said. It does. There was nothing she could say to fix that, and for once she did not try. The front of the restaurant creaked in the wind. Somewhere in the kitchen, a pipe knocked once inside the wall. Roman reached into his jacket and placed a folded document on the table. Harper stared at it. What is that? Something I should have asked before doing. Her stomach tightened. Roman, it concerns your mother. She stood so fast the booth scraped behind her. No. Harper, no. We talked about this. You said you would not touch my life without asking. I did not change her care. Then what is it? A consultation. Her hands curled at her sides. He slid the paper toward her but did not force it closer. Harper, Grace Oncology, reviewed her file. If you allow it, they can see her tomorrow. Harper stared at him. The room blurred slightly at the edges. Harbor Grace was the kind of medical center people mentioned in fundraisers and news stories and conversations that began with "if only." It was not a place Evelyn Lane could enter with overdue bills and a bus pass. How did you get her file? Roman's face did not shift. I had someone request it through legal channels. That sounds rehearsed. It is still true. Harper laughed once sharp and breathless. You investigated my mother while investigating your traitor. I investigated the woman who saved my son and found out she was drowning. The anger inside her shook against something more fragile. You had no right. I know. Then why? Roman stood. Not close, not towering, just standing with the truth between them. Because Clara died of the same cancer. Harper's anger faltered. Roman's voice stayed controlled, but something underneath it was raw. I had every resource, every specialist, every chance a man like me can buy. And I still lost her because I looked too late. Harper could not move. Roman looked at the paper on the table. I cannot give Clara time. I can give your mother a doctor. The silence after that was not empty. It was full of machines, humming, and hospital rooms, bills hidden under mugs, deleted voicemails, women pretending pain was manageable, daughters promising medicine they could not afford. Harper sat slowly. Her fingers touched the edge of the paper but did not open it. If I say no, then Vince drives you wherever you want to go. Your mother's file stays where it was. Nothing changes. And if I say yes, Then she is seen tomorrow? You owe me nothing. That's impossible. No, Roman said. It is unfamiliar. Harper looked at him through eyes she refused to let spill over. You don't get to save people and call it nothing. Roman's expression softened. You saved Ethan and tried to call it nothing. She had no answer. He pushed the whiskey glass away untouched. For tonight, go home. Or go to the apartment. Vince will take you. I will be at the hospital with Ethan. Harper opened the document. Evelyn Lane. Appointment scheduled. Harbor Grace Oncology. 10 in the morning. A sound left her before she could stop it. Not quite a sob. Not quite relief. Roman looked away, giving her the only privacy the room allowed. Harper folded the paper carefully and held it against her chest. Roman. He turned back. Her voice was barely steady. If this is a chain, I'll hate you. His eyes held hers. Then I will spend whatever time I have proving it is not. She believed him. Not completely. Not safely. But enough. Vince appeared at the hallway door. Roman looked toward him. It's done, Vince said quietly. Harper did not ask what that meant. Roman did not explain. The old Harper would have wanted every answer. The woman sitting in the private dining room understood some answers carried blood on their shoes. Roman walked her to the back entrance himself. The snow had stopped. The alley was still there, narrow and dark, with tire tracks frozen into dirty slush. Harper looked at the place where Ethan had lain, now swept clean by weather, and men who knew how to erase evidence. Roman stood beside her. I should have been there, he said. Harper looked at him. You are now. The words surprised them both. For a moment, the cold made their breath visible between them. Roman's hand moved slightly as if he might touch her shoulder, then stopped. He chose restraint again. That choice unsettled her more than touch might have. Vince opened the SUV door. Harper stepped toward it, then paused. Tell Ethan I'll come by tomorrow after my mother's appointment. Roman nodded. He will like that. She looked at him one last time before getting in. Under the alley light, he looked like two men fighting for the same body. The boss who had just removed a traitor and the father who had nearly lost his son. The dangerous man everyone feared and the grieving husband who still wore his ring. Harper sat in the SUV and held her mother's appointment paper in both hands. As the car pulled away, Roman remained in the alley watching until the taillights turned the corner and disappeared. Harper did not sleep that night. She lay on the unfamiliar bed in the Harbor apartment with her mother's appointment paper resting on the nightstand, folded so carefully the edges lined up. Every few minutes she reached out and touched it with 2 fingers, as if it might vanish if she trusted it too much. Outside, Boston moved through the dark in muted pieces. Tires hissed over wet pavement. A horn sounded far away. Somewhere below, a door opened and closed. The harbor lights trembled across the ceiling, broken by the slow movement of black water. Harper kept seeing Ethan in the snow, then Roman in the alley, then her mother in a hospital bed smiling with lips too pale, saying she was fine when fine had become a word they both used to avoid worse ones. At 6:30 she gave up pretending. She showered, dressed in the soft gray sweater and dark jeans Vince had brought, then stood in front of the mirror longer than necessary. She looked less like the waitress who had stumbled out of Billionaire's 2 nights ago, and more like someone wearing a borrowed version of safety. She did not know if she trusted it. At 9:15, Vince knocked. He had a paper cup of coffee in one hand and a bag from a bakery in the other. Roman said you forget to eat. Harper took the coffee. Roman says a lot. Vince's mouth did not move, but something in his eyes suggested amusement. He also said you would say that. She looked into the bag and saw a warm croissant wrapped in paper. Does he give everyone breakfast orders? No. That answer settled strangely in her chest. The drive to County General was quiet. Harper watched the city wake, fully watched people move with purpose through slush and steam rising from manholes, watched a woman in a red coat carry flowers through the hospital entrance. For a moment, Harper felt jealous of anyone whose flowers were enough. Evelyn Lane was sitting up when Harper entered her room. Her mother looked smaller than she used to, but her eyes were still sharp. Still blue. Still able to see through every wall Harper built. You look like you haven't slept, Evelyn said. Harper crossed the room and kissed her forehead. You always open with flattery. I open with the truth. Saves time. Harper sat on the edge of the bed and held out the paper. Evelyn took it slowly. Her fingers shook as she unfolded it. For a long moment she only read. Then she looked up. Harper. I know. Harbor Grace. I know. How? Harper looked at the thin blanket over her mother's knees, then at the window that faced a brick wall. I helped someone, she said. His family helped us back. Evelyn studied her. His family. Harper nodded. A dangerous family. The question did not surprise her. Yes. Evelyn folded the paper again very carefully. Are you safe? Harper thought of Roman's coat around her shoulders. Vince waiting outside. Ethan asking for her. Miles being led into the hallway. The private dining room that still smelled like fear. Yes, she said. It was not the whole truth. It was the truest part. Evelyn reached for her hand. Then we go. You're not going to ask more. Her mother squeezed her fingers. I have spent 2 years watching doctors decide how much hope we could afford. If hope comes through a strange door, I'm not slamming it shut because I don't like the hallway. Harper's eyes burned. Mom, I'll ask questions when I'm strong enough to survive the answers. That was Evelyn. Sick, frightened, thin as paper in places, but still able to stand in the center of a storm and name it. Vince drove them to Harbor Grace. No one at the front desk asked them to wait. No one gave them a clipboard with questions that felt like traps. A nurse greeted Evelyn by name and brought a wheelchair that did not squeak. The halls were bright, quiet, almost gentle. There were paintings on the walls and windows that looked over a winter garden. Evelyn's grip tightened around Harper's hand. People heal here, she whispered. Harper could not speak. Dr. Anika Patel met them in a consultation room with warm lighting and a screen already filled with Evelyn's scans. She spoke clearly, not softly enough to feel like pity, not fast enough to feel rushed. The cancer is advanced, she said. I will not pretend otherwise. But your previous treatment plan was limited by access. We have options here that were not made available to you before. Evelyn sat very still. Harper leaned forward. What kind of options? Targeted chemotherapy. A stronger pain management plan. Genetic testing. Depending on response, surgery may be possible later. We need more imaging first, but this is not a conversation about keeping you comfortable until the end. This is a conversation about fighting with better tools. Evelyn covered her mouth. Harper looked at the screen, though the scans meant little to her. Shapes. Shadows. Territory under attack. Dr. Patel's voice softened. There is no promise I can ethically make beyond this. We are not too late to try. Not too late. The words moved through Harper so slowly she almost did not understand them at first. Then her body did. She bent forward, one hand over her mouth, and cried without sound. Evelyn reached for her. Baby. I'm okay, Harper said, wiping fast at her face. Evelyn laughed through tears. No, you're not? But maybe we get to be. After the appointment, Harper took her mother to the new room. Private. Clean. Sunlight on the floor. A chair that folded into a bed so Harper could stay if she needed. A vase of white tulips stood near the window. No card. Harper knew who sent them anyway. She stepped into the hall and called Roman. He answered on the first ring. Harper. The way he said her name was different now. Less like an answer to a report. More like he had been waiting for the sound of it. We saw Dr. Patel. And Harper looked through the glass at her mother, touching one tulip petal with wonder. She said there are options. Roman was silent. Harper swallowed. I don't know how to thank you. You do not have to. Don't make this easy. I am not. She closed her eyes. Roman? Yes. If this becomes a debt someday, I'll never forgive you. His answer came steady. It will not. She believed him more than she wanted to. How is Ethan? There was a pause, and when Roman spoke again, the boss had disappeared. He is awake. Angry, in pain, asking when you are coming. Harper smiled, despite the ache in her chest. I'll come now. You do not have to. I know. This time she ended the call first. At St. Bridget's, Ethan was sitting up in bed with bruises turning dark purple at the edges, and a scowl aimed at a tray of untouched soup. Roman stood near the window. He looked like he had not slept since the phone call. His shirt sleeves were rolled, his hair less controlled than usual, and the shadow along his jaw made him look more dangerous and more tired. Ethan's face brightened when he saw Harper. "You came." "Of course I came." "You saw your mom." Harper nodded. "She's at Harbor Grace." Ethan smiled, then winced. "Good." She moved to his bedside. "Stop moving your face if it hurts. I can't help being expressive." Roman made a quiet sound that might have been a laugh if it belonged to anyone else. Harper looked at the soup. "You planning to fight that or eat it? It looks like punishment." "It's hospital soup. That's its natural state." Ethan pushed the tray away. "I hate this." The words landed harder than the soup deserved. Roman turned from the window. Ethan stared at the blanket. "I hate everyone watching me. I hate that Vince checks the hallway before I go to the bathroom. I hate that Dad keeps looking at me like I'm made of glass." Roman's face went still. Harper sat in the chair beside the bed. "That sounds fair." Ethan looked at her surprised. "You're not going to tell me I should be grateful?" "No, you can be grateful and furious. People are complicated." Ethan swallowed. "They took me from our front door." Roman's jaw tightened. "I know." "No," Ethan said, voice shaking now. "You keep saying that, but you don't. You told me guards made me safe. Cameras made me safe. Roots made me safe. I did everything right and they still got me." Roman moved closer to the bed. For a moment, he looked like a man facing an enemy he could not threaten. "You're right." Ethan blinked. Roman sat beside him. "I failed you." Harper looked away, giving them privacy without leaving. Ethan's mouth trembled. "I was scared." Roman's hand closed gently over his son's. "So was I." The words were simple. They broke something open. Ethan leaned forward carefully, and Roman caught him with a tenderness that made Harper's throat ache. He held his son like he had been waiting years for permission to do it. Ethan gripped the back of Roman's shirt face, hidden against his shoulder the machines beside the bed, keeping steady time. Harper stood quietly. At the door, Roman looked up. "Do not go," his eyes said. So she stayed. 2 weeks passed in pieces. Evelyn began treatment at Harbor Grace. The first days were brutal. There was nausea, exhaustion, shaking hands, and nights when Harper sat beside her with a damp cloth and tried not to count each breath. But there was also Dr. Patel, adjusting medication before pain swallowed the room. There were nurses who remembered Evelyn liked peppermint tea. There were mornings when her mother opened her eyes and smiled before pretending to be brave. Ethan healed slowly. The bruises faded from purple to green to yellow. The nightmares did not fade as quickly. Some nights he called Harper from Roman's phone because he did not want to wake his father. Harper always answered. Sometimes he talked. Sometimes he breathed on the line until he could sleep. Roman never mentioned those calls, but one evening he sent a message. "Thank you." Harper stared at it for a full minute before replying. "You're welcome." She returned to Bella Moore's after 3 days. Carla tried to lecture her about missed shifts until Mr. Bellamore appeared from his office, pale and sweating, and told Harper she could take whatever schedule she needed. That frightened her more than the lecture would have. By the end of the second week, Roman asked her to meet him at another restaurant. Marina House sat above the harbor, all glass candlelight white tablecloths, and the kind of view people paid for before they tasted a single bite. Harper arrived in her best black dress, which suddenly felt too cheap under the soft gold lights. Roman waited near the bar. For once, he was not surrounded by men. He looked at her like he noticed the dress, then chose not to say anything that might make her feel exposed. "This place is yours too?" Harper asked. "Yes, of course it is." He led her through the dining room. The staff moved with smooth precision. A hostess greeted Roman with quiet respect. The manager, a silver-haired woman named Patricia Ward, watched Harper with professional suspicion. Roman took Harper to a private table near the windows. Boston Harbor stretched beneath them, black and silver under the night. He slid a folder across the table. Harper looked at it. People in your life need to stop handing me folders. This one is not medical. That's barely comforting. It is a job offer. She did not touch it. Roman continued. Assistant manager. Training under Patricia for 8 weeks, then general manager when she retires. Harper stared at him. Here. Yes. I work at Billionaires. You run half of Billionaires without the title or the pay. That is not the same thing. No, here you will be paid correctly. She opened the folder despite herself. The salary made her stomach flip. Benefits. Health insurance. Paid time off. A schedule that did not look like punishment. More money than she had ever earned in her life. She closed it slowly. No. Roman's expression did not change, but his eyes sharpened. Why? Because this feels like Charity wearing a suit. It is not. Then why me? Because you read rooms. Because you remember details. Because my staff respects strength, and yours has been tested harder than most. Because Ethan trusts you. Because I trust you. The last sentence changed the temperature between them. Harper looked at the folder. My mother's treatment continues if I say no. Yes, you won't make things harder for Billionaires. No, you won't stand outside my apartment looking tragic in expensive coats. A smile touched his mouth. I cannot promise that. She almost laughed, then stopped herself. Roman. He leaned forward slightly. This offer is not a chain. If you accept, you work here. You manage staff reservations, service complaints, impossible guests, and Patricia's temper. You do not carry messages, you do not spy, you do not become part of my other business. Can those things stay separate? Roman held her gaze. Not always. But I will keep that line for you as long as I can. As long as you can is not a promise. No, he said, it is the truth. That mattered more. Harper opened the folder again. When would I start? Patricia did not make it easy. On Harper's first day, she handed her a reservation chart, a wine list, and a look sharp enough to peel paint. Mr. DeLuca values you, Patricia said. Harper held the chart. That sounds like an accusation. It is a warning. This room does not care who brought you in. It cares whether you can keep it from falling apart. Then teach me. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Harper did not look away. By the end of the first week, Harper knew which tables gave privacy, which windows caused glare at sunset, which servers needed praise and which needed pressure, which guests came to be seen and which came to disappear. She made mistakes, plenty of them. She mispronounced a burgundy double booked a corner table, and once sent the wrong anniversary dessert to a senator's wife. Patricia corrected her without mercy. Harper learned without excuse. Roman came in twice that week and never interfered. Not when Patricia snapped at her. Not when a wealthy guest called Harper sweetheart and asked if she had been hired for decoration. Roman's eyes went cold at that, but Harper handled it herself. She smiled at the man and said, "No, sir. Decoration is usually quieter and less expensive." The guest stared. His wife laughed. Patricia smiled for the first time where Harper could see it. Ethan began working weekends once Dr. Patel and Roman both agreed he was strong enough for short shifts. He arrived in a white shirt and black apron, looking deeply offended by the concept of carrying water glasses. Harper handed him a tray. "Tables 14 and 16. I'm Roman DeLuca's son, and I'm your manager. Move." Ethan grinned. From across the dining room, Roman watched them. There was something softer in him when he saw Ethan laugh. Something less haunted. One night after closing, Harper found Roman on the balcony outside Marina House. The harbor wind moved through his hair. He held a glass of whiskey he had not touched. "You do that a lot," she said. He turned. "Do what?" "Hold drinks like props. I like to disappoint them." She came to stand beside him, leaving a careful space between their shoulders. Below them, the water slapped softly against the pier. "Roman said Ethan slept through the night yesterday." "That's good. He said you told him fear is not weakness." "I told him fear means his body is trying to keep him alive." Roman looked at her. "You know how to say things he can hear. So do you." "No," he said, "I am learning." The honesty settled between them. Harper looked out at the harbor. "You scare me, Roman." He did not flinch. "I know. I'm not afraid you'll hurt me." His gaze moved to her face. "That should comfort me more than it does. I'm afraid I understand you." The wind lifted a strand of hair across her cheek. Roman reached up slowly, giving her every chance to move away. She did not. His fingers brushed the hair back, barely touching her skin. The contact was small. It moved through her like a match struck in a dark room. He lowered his hand. "I'm not a good man, Harper." "No." The answer hit him, but she did not soften it. Then she added, "But you are not only the worst thing you've done." Roman's eyes held hers. For a moment, the distance between them thinned to almost nothing. He did not kiss her. She was grateful. She was disappointed. Both feelings stood beside each other without apology. 3 months after the night in the alley, rain washed the last dirty snow from the curbs. Evelyn's scans showed response. Dr. Patel refused to call it victory, but she smiled when she said the word progress. Evelyn started walking the garden hallway every afternoon, one hand on the rail chin lifted like a queen returning to court. Harper moved into a small apartment closer to the harbor. She paid the deposit herself. She bought a couch that did not sag and curtains that made the morning light look kind. One evening, there was a knock at her door. She checked the peephole and found Ethan standing in the hallway with Vince behind him, pretending not to hover. Harper opened the door. "Are you allowed to be here?" Ethan lifted his chin. "I have security," Vince said. He argued for 20 minutes. Harper stepped aside. "That sounds allowed adjacent." Ethan came in holding a small box wrapped in silver paper. He looked nervous. Not mafia nervous. 14-year-old boy nervous. "I got you something." "Ethan, don't say no before you see it. That's rude." She took the box. Inside was a silver bracelet with a tiny rose charm. Not black, not thorned. A simple open rose bright against her palm. Harper went still. Ethan spoke quickly. "It's not the organization mark. Dad said that one means loyalty to the family business. This one means family. The people who get protected because they matter, not because they obey." Her throat tightened. "I can't accept this." "You already did." She looked at him. Ethan's bruises were gone now, but something older lived behind his eyes. Not innocence lost completely. Innocence changed. "You accepted it when you stopped in the alley," he said. "When you called him, when you stayed." Harper closed her hand around the bracelet. "I was scared." "I know. I almost kept walking. But you didn't." That was all he needed. She pulled him into a hug, careful of the places that had healed but still lived in memory. Ethan hugged her back hard. "Thank you," he whispered. Harper closed her eyes. "For what?" "For seeing me." After he left, Harper fastened the bracelet around her wrist. The rose caught the light when she moved. Later that night, she walked past Billionaires on her way home from Marina House. The rain had stopped. The alley behind the restaurant smelled of wet brick and old oil just as it always had. The street lamp above the service store flickered once, then steadied. Harper stopped at the place where Ethan had lain. For a moment, she could still see him there. Snow in his hair. Blood on his mouth. One hand reaching for her wrist. Footsteps sounded behind her. She did not turn. "Vince needs a bell," she said. "Vince is 2 blocks away," Roman answered. Her heart shifted before she could stop it. Roman came to stand beside her. Not too close. Never careless with distance now. They looked at the alley together. "Do you regret calling me?" he asked. Harper watched rainwater slide along a crack in the pavement. "No, even after everything." She turned toward him. "Especially after everything." Roman's eyes searched hers. The city moved around them, unaware or pretending to be. A taxi passed at the end of the street. Music drifted faintly from Billionaire's kitchen. Somewhere above, someone opened a window and laughed. Roman reached for her hand. Slowly, she let him take it. His fingers closed around hers, warm and careful. The silver rose rested against his knuckles. For once, neither of them spoke. They walked out of the alley together, side by side, into the thin gold light spilling from the restaurant windows.